everybody. This is Jake Stenziano, host of the Wheelbarrow Profits Podcast, here with my co-host, the multifamily mentor, the coach, the chef, the father of six, the best-selling author, the G-Daddy, Gino Barrow. Gino, how's it going?
Jake, I'm doing good. I hope the kids don't make a lot of noise today. I got home by myself. Let's say a little prayer. Hope we got good quality going today.
You're cleared out there for the folks on YouTube. You got no pictures of the wife or the kids anymore. So the move has happened. Here comes Jacksonville. So
next week, bro. Next week.
Hey, today's guest is Matt Theriault. Matt is the host of Epic Real Estate Investing Podcast. He describes himself as an ordinary guy who once had a goal to be successful in real estate investing and became a master of multiple streams of passive income. Nice concept. So without further ado, Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jake. Glad to be here. Hello, Gino.
Good afternoon, Matt.
So we were going back and forth a little bit before the show. Why don't you tell us how the whole your whole real estate career got kicked off and some of the things you went through to get where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I spent the next 15 years of my life in the music business and had a lot of success and really enjoyed myself.
You were in GNR, weren't you?
Pardon me?
Guns N' Roses? You were backup for GNR?
No,
shit, you look familiar, man. I'm sorry, my bad. Okay, all right, here we go. Focus up.
Very different genre. I had a small independent hip-hop label, but we had major label distribution. And we did pretty well, and we just had a basic formula that we just of promotion, marketing, advertising, and then what the product needed to be, and we just ran that over and over and over again. Did very well until there's one month we just kind of woke up and like, oops, it didn't work so well this month. What happened?
Uh-oh.
Oh, well, just a fluke. So next month we did the same thing, and it did even worse. And so the next month we threw more money at the same thing and more money, and we just ground the whole thing into the ground. And at the time we really had no idea what was happening. And in hindsight, it's crystal clear. This thing called the digital download came along and put all the music stores out of business. So in 6 very short months, I was bankrupt, divorced, and bagging groceries. I literally went from a 7-figure year to $7 an hour. And that was age. I was 34 years old. As a big pity party, I was blaming everybody and everything other than myself. I was like, why me? Woe's me. No shortage of shoulders to cry on. And after about 6 months of bagging groceries, I was like, wow, nobody is coming along to save me. This is it right now. And the grocery store manager, who also happened to be 34 years old, he'd been bagging groceries there since he was 16. And he kind of shared with me one day, he said, Matt, and this is what changed everything. He said, if you really want your money back, if you want your life back, if you don't want to be stuck here the rest of your life, the final frontier where the average person has a legitimate shot at creating real wealth, real estate. And he says, let me show you what I've done. So at 34, he was, I think, only 3 or 4 years from receiving his pension, at least 80% of his pension. But along the way, he'd been able to scoop up a few apartment buildings, and his apartment buildings were cash flowing more than what he was making per his paycheck. And so before the age of 40, he was going to be financially free and on his way. And I was just like, wow, I don't have a plan B. If this is the final frontier, that sounds pretty good to me. So I did what the logical thing was. I went and got a real estate license and became a real estate agent. And if you've ever taken that path, you understand that, if real estate is where the money's at, it's not on this side of the desk, right? So I made this transition to become a real estate investor. I made a very large investment in my education. At least for the time, it was tremendously large. And
what kind of tremendously large are we talking about?
Well, this was back in 2006. I paid $22,000 for a 2-year program.
And Gino, we're cheap, bro.
Yeah, I know.
Huh?
We're cheap. We gotta raise those rates.
Well, that was, gosh, you can find $100,000, $500,000 investing education packages, mentoring packages if you really look for them. But at that time, $20,000, nobody had even heard of something like that for an educational program. At least nobody in my circle. And people thought I was crazy, but I just enrolled and I submerged myself into the whole thing and did what they told me to do. It's where I discovered the expression "move at the speed of instruction." You don't need to know everything before you get started. Just take it one step at a time. And the other expression I heard at that point, which changed my life, was just travel as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll see further. You don't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. And so that was the philosophy I operated from. And then during that process, stumbled upon this small little book. I doubt you've heard of it, called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it introduced me to this concept of passive income and how to escape the rat race and get your passive income to exceed your monthly expenses. And so I just I took this education that I learned from this program and kind of used that Rich Dad, Poor Dad as the framework for my whole business. And in 3.5 years, I got my passive income to exceed my monthly expenses. And as you could imagine, in your network and your friends, when they know you were just bagging groceries not too long ago after you lost it all, and now you're playing golf on a Tuesday, a lot of people want to take you out to lunch and have coffee and discover what you did. That just kind of led me to teaching as well.
Matt, let me go back to that feeling, because I want you to dive a little deeper into that feeling, because I've never experienced it, but I'm sure a lot of people have. How did it make you feel, making 7 figures, going down to making, you say, $7 an hour? And what was the inflection point where you find yourself, your big why? How am I getting out of this hole? Because people need to hear that, because they see you're playing golf on Tuesday. They see Jake in a beautiful house back there. They see you with a bunch of kids, and it takes a lot of effort and a lot of determination to get there. What really triggered it for you, and what were those feelings going on when you just crapped out?
Sure. Well, one of the I guess the dynamics I was working, I was like, wow, I'm here 6 months and I'm still punching this clock. Like nothing's happening. Like, is this really where I'm going to be? And realizing that although there were a lot of people to pat me on the back and give me words of advice, nobody was giving me a hand. No one was helping me. So I was just like, okay, if I have to make this happen, I'm the only one that's going to make it happen. So that was a big epiphany, but it took about 6 months for that to sink in. Like, we're in trouble here. There was another very humbling experience when my high school girlfriend had come through the checkout line while I was bagging her groceries, and I had to ask her paper or plastic. It was a very painful situation. But the real turning point was there was a very well-to-do, nicely dressed soccer mom. Just think soccer mom that has money, and you kind of get the image.
Ow!
She had her right there. You go. That's what I was thinking. But she had she looked like she just came from her tennis practice, but she was more interested in how she looked than she was at performing at tennis. She had her baby stroller with the sidecar, the side-by-side, her 2 kids in there. That stroller, probably, now that I'm a dad, I know that was not a cheap stroller. She was on her phone, paying me no mind, an abundance of groceries coming through, and she went to open up to pay her bill while she's still on the phone. And when she opened up her wallet, her ATM receipt fell out. And I couldn't help but sneak a peek to see what the balance line was. And I think it was like $256,000. And that number was very significant to me, because when I was in the music business, when my bank account would reach the balance of $250,000, that's when it triggered a transfer. And it had probably been about 9 months since I seen that. And I realized that doing what I'm doing right now, I ain't going to see that ever again. And that was a very painful moment. I actually just dismissed myself from work and went out to my car and started crying. And, not a deeply religious person, but I said, God, I'm better than this. This can't be what you have in store for me. Give me a sign. Tell me to do something. Just point me in the right direction. Help me out, somebody. And that's when I walked into the store, and the manager was like, Matt, what happened? Where'd you go? And I just kind of shared everything I just shared with you. And that's when he kind of dumped this whole real estate thing on my lap. So I did skip over all those details, but that was the turning point. And that is still a driving force for me today. We've all heard that people are motivated by the pursuit of pleasure, or the running away from pain.
That's right.
And that was painful. And I know that's the alternative. I know I didn't know how to do anything else. There wasn't a whole lot of demand for an out-of-work music entrepreneur. And I had to go learn something new. So I was like, well, if I have to learn something new, I want to learn the thing that's going to pay me the most and gives me the best chance of success. And that's when real estate fell in my lap, and that was what I did.
We got a Tony Robbins disciple on here, Jake. That is my boy. And, and that's what happened. That was my story also, moving away from pain. But the other takeaway for me is seek and ye shall find. So if he's actually seeking for something, he's seeking for the answers from whether it's from God or from something else or looking within. You have to ask yourself what you want, not what you don't want. So, I mean, you made it clear to yourself, you made the intention. So we have to make intentions to ourselves. What do you want? I asked my brother this question last week. I said, Mark, what do you want? He goes, well, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. Okay, that's great. I didn't ask you what you don't want. And that's what 90% of the people focus on. What you do want. Focus on financial freedom. Don't be afraid. Money is not a bad thing. The way you use money can be a bad thing, but money is not a thing. It's just the way you use it. It's just energy. So be clear on what you want to do with the money and be clear on what you want to do with your life. So we figured out why real estate. So Jake and I joke a little bit about this with residential brokers. Jake loves residential brokers, don't you, Jake? That's like the space. So let's actually talk about how and why you shouldn't become a residential broker, and why that's just another job. Like Rich Dad says, broker means broker than me and you. It's another paycheck. It's building nothing. It's just another job. So can you just jump into that space for a little bit for us?
Yeah, since you just talked about Rich Dad, I mean, if you look at his cash flow quadrant, you've got the the employee, the self-employed, the business owner, and the investor quadrants. Mm-hmm. And people kind of make this transition from employee to self-employed up to business owner and eventually investor. And that self-employed quadrant where the brokers live is really probably the worst place to be out of all four of those quadrants. As an employee, you're exchanging time for money, but you've got your weekends off in most cases. You get to work 9 to 5 and go have a life, whatever your employee compensation provides you. But when you go into that S quadrant and you get that entrepreneurial bug and you want to be a business owner, you can get stuck there for a very long time. And, in most cases, you might be earning less than you were as an employee and have less free time at the same time because you're working 60, 70 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And that's what I noticed when I was a real estate agent. I was like, wow, this isn't what I signed up for. There's nothing passive about this income at all. And, you're at the mercy when you're an agent. I mean, you're at the mercy of when someone wants to buy a house. And if you don't take that call and you don't drop everything and go meet them, there's another real estate agent right behind you willing to help them. And so that was a constant fear, a constant, sense of urgency. Even when the phone wasn't ringing, like, oh my God, are they talking to someone else? Should I call and follow up? Like, and it was just, I did okay as a real estate agent. I worked in Palos Verdes in Los Angeles. So there wasn't a house there under $1 million. So I only needed to sell one house a month to do well for myself. But still, it's just like you like anything else, you kind of you get used to that, and now all of a sudden you need more because your expenses and lifestyle has risen up to your income, and now you're just broker at a higher level.
So how did you get out of that? How did you get out of that mindset of getting out of the residential brokerage into I want to talk about your first deal too. So transition from that to your first deal.
Sure. So there was one Saturday, I did pretty good as a real estate agent. And at the end of that career, I had a couple clients that gave me repeat business over and over and over again. And if you're a real estate agent, those are your dream clients and you want to do everything you can to keep them. It was the type of thing where they just kind of fax you over, here's my signed offer, go present it for me. Or here's the property I want you to sell for me, just here's the listing presentation artist. Like those will just come automatically. And I was shuffling paperwork and getting paid very well for that. And there was one Saturday, we had a meeting it was 11 a.m., and I showed up in a suit and tie with all of their documents laid out on the table, ready for them to sign, my clients. And they showed up about 20 minutes late. They showed up in jeans and a T-shirt, and they signed their documents, and they were gone. And I was left there to process the paperwork, and now I had to go hold their house open. And I was just like, that's where it hit me. I was like, wow, if this is really the final frontier where the average person has a legitimate shot of creating real wealth, I am sitting on the wrong side of the desk. And I just made a commitment or a decision there at that point. Like, I'm not going to represent other people in the buying and selling of property. I'm going to represent myself. And then that's when I'll seek, you shall find. That's when I started to look at, like, how can I do this myself? How can I go become a real estate investor and do this on my own? And that's when I found that educational program and made that switch.
And what was your first deal your first deal that you did?
Yeah, one of the strategies they taught us, I didn't have a lot of money because my lifestyle was so exorbitant and I was deeply in debt at the time. So I didn't have anything extra to go out and buy real estate. And as a real estate agent, we all kind of operate in that little box. You think like wow, I got to go to a lender, I got to get a pre-qual letter, then I got to go find the property, and then I got to buy it, and hopefully I buy it at a good price. Like that's all I really knew. But when I started taking this education, I realized, oh well, you don't need any money at all. So I was really attracted to all those creative acquisition strategies. And then one of the ways to find leads that they said was drive neighborhoods. And so I was like, well, I can do that. That doesn't cost a whole lot of money. So I started driving neighborhoods. Came across a property, and it looked like a rehab project that had been abandoned, but there was a for sale sign in the front. Called the number, and went back to my mentor. I said, I got this cool deal. What do I do next? He says, write an offer. I was like, I don't have any money. He said, it doesn't matter. Write an offer. So I just wrote the offer, got it under contract. And then I said, okay, now I got it under contract. What do I do? He says, go sell it or find a partner. And I was like, and then he looked at it, he says, you got a lot of equity. You have a lot to offer. This is the hardest part of the business, is to get a deal with equity or ROI under contract. This is what people with money can't do or don't want to do. And they love to find people like you and partner or buy from. So like, okay, so that was kind of the idea where wholesaling was introduced to me. But he actually said, don't wholesale it so quickly. This is something where you can make much more money by being a partner. And at that time, I after about 3 different phone calls of people that I knew that I'd met along the way, they brought in the money, they closed on it, they brought in the rehab team, they brought in the funds, everything. And instead of, a $5,000 wholesale fee, I was a partner and finished that deal with $26,000 in my pocket. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I was like, oh, find the deal and then the money will find you. And so many people are afraid to take that step because they don't know where they're going to find the money, so they'll never even put the property under contract. But by putting in the property under contract, you're actually now in control.
What I like about the story is it's exactly what you said about 10 minutes ago. You get to that point and you only see that far enough, right? At least you got to the point where you could see that far enough, and then you took your journey and then you saw even farther. So most people don't want to get on the road, right? So you have to be commended, have to commend people to take that action. So that was like the most important step is actually starting, right? I mean, that's great. So can you talk about some of your other strategies that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, so from that point forward, it really clicked like, oh, I just need to find deals, right?
And what year was this?
This was 2006-ish,
Okay.
So just before the big crash.
So you're finding deals at that point. So nobody says there's no more deals around and all, but you start at the height when everyone's probably saying, there's no more deals left. So, listeners, beware. You know what I'm saying? If you know what you're doing, you'll find deals in any market, correct?
Absolutely. So something I did, though, is I leveraged other people that had deals. And there just happened to be a guy in my city, Matt Owens. I don't know if you guys know who he is. He runs a turnkey operation in Memphis, but he's based here in Los Angeles. And he had a bunch of deals, and he had them all under contract. So what I did was, I was like, okay, so these aren't necessarily deals like for good flipping type things, but what they were good deals for somebody in California was these were, I don't know, $75,000 to $125,000 homes. That even if you didn't have leverage on the property, you're still going to get somewhere between 11 and a 12% cash on cash return. And I was like, okay, I got it. I see my angle. So I would just print up flyers of his properties with all my information on it, and I would just go from RIA group to meetup group to networking event. And when I got my time with the microphone, I just kind of held it up, said, hey, I got this great property. It's going to cash on cash return of 12%. If you'd like some more information on this property and others just like it, because I got a bunch of them, come see me in the back of the room, and I'll give you that information. And I just did that over and over and over again, and he paid me $3,500 a pop. And so that's when I was really kind of introduced into wholesaling. And really, I mean, that really just took off for me. And so, so that was the second strategy I really took off with.
So how has your strategy, I guess, evolved over time from the very beginning to now? And what else have you learned along the way? I guess that's a big question.
Perfect. So by doing that from RIA group to RIA group to RIA group, you start realizing that when you're walking in as a newbie to those groups with a giant audience of people, and you're feeling like, oh my God, everybody here knows so much more than me, and then all of a sudden you show up 2 or 3 times in a row with the deal, you realize how little everybody else knows. And you realize how little production, how little or few deals, if any deals, anyone else is doing. I mean, all of a sudden I became the expert of like, oh, this guy is a hustler. He's always got deals, and he's got properties, and he's the guy out there making it happen. And so what that did inadvertently was attracted money to me. It attracted money partners and attracted investors. It attracted sellers. And I had found there was one seller in particular that had 35 properties in Illinois to sell. And we created a creative exit strategy where we could wholesale those, but hold the note on those properties and create a large amount of cash flow for us. So we created a company. We sold them off one by one, but the company held the note. So then we had this one company that had 35 seller finance notes on it, and that's what kind of launched me onto looking in other markets and looking on my own. And just the opportunity just kind of came my way because I positioned myself as the go-to guy, the guy that was always had a deal in his hand. And none of the deals were my deals, but everyone just was, thought that, wow, this guy's really making it happen. What's his secret? I was like, I'm selling other people's deals. And so then they said, well, will you sell mine too? And that's kind of how it happened. And that led me down to Memphis, where I picked up my first multifamily. I picked up a 14-unit there. I still own that today. And that's when eyes really opened and I saw the land of cheap housing. I saw, wow, these houses are 30, 40 grand. They get rent of $700 to $800.
Mm-hmm.
When I was raising money for that 35 or that one company that wholesaled those 35 properties, we were looking for a minimum investment of $100,000 per person. And along that way, I found a bunch of people that had 50,000. Had nothing to do with their money. But when I went to Memphis and I saw this opportunity, that's when I was like, oh, I know a bunch of people with 50 grand. They could buy almost 2 houses here, and so I just kind of started putting the pieces together, and we built a cash flowing business, and I built a huge portfolio for myself using other people's money.
So how did you transition into the education aspect of it?
Yeah, so right about that time, people were asking, I think that's right when I started my podcast, and I actually started the podcast because I just wanted to sell a book. I thought I was going to be a millionaire author and realized that there's no money in books. But what comes from being an author of a book is a lot of people put you on a pedestal and seek out your advice. And so indirectly, once again, just because of taking action and positioning myself in a way that just a position of authority, I guess. More money, more opportunity, all that came, and all the questions that came to me were of a real estate nature. And I still didn't want to abandon my book idea, and I didn't want to turn that podcast into a real estate investing podcast. So I started a second podcast on real estate investing. So still never sold a book, but the real estate podcast it skyrocketed in popularity. And questions started coming in. I was like, well, okay, and I got introduced to this thing called membership websites, which was something totally brand new to me at the time. It was as new as podcasts were. And so I started putting my lessons visually behind a membership wall, and that's how that started.
What do you like about the education aspect of it?
When I tell people that I escaped the rat race in less than 4 years, you get a lot of eyebrows raised. And a lot of cynics and skeptics. And I always just said, like, gosh, knowing what I know now, you guys just don't know what you don't know. Knowing what I know now, I could probably do it in half the time, maybe even faster. But at that point, I'm not going to just give all my stuff away to prove you wrong, right? Mm-hmm. So I was able to let me just dump this onto my coaching students and see how fast I can get them there. I got Parker Stiles out of Georgia, escaped the rat race in less than a year. Corey Kendig in Erie, Pennsylvania, escaped the rat race in less than a year. Mackenzie Kelly in San Francisco. She didn't escape the rat race, but she created enough passive income so her husband could stay at home. And I was like, okay, we're onto something here. And I get a lot of...
That sounds backwards, man.
Say again?
It sounds backwards.
How do you mean?
It is California, Jake.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying,
right.
Bro? He's saying stay-at-home dad, not mom. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that
He's a Tennessee guy. You get in California.
That's like, what man doesn't want that woman, right? Totally. But Yeah, so it's just they were all able to do that. And, Parker, he's moving to from Georgia to Colorado to live there 6 months. He loves nature, he loves hiking, he loves the woods. He's bringing his brand new wife, and they're starting a whole new life in Colorado while the business operates in Georgia, and he's going to live there 100% on his passive income. So, I don't know. There's no warmer feeling you can get from passing on what you know to people than something like that.
What is your favorite real estate investing strategy? Can you name the other ones? I know we've talked a little about wholesaling, seller financing, notes. Can you just dive a little deeper into your other strategies?
I don't think there's one strategy that serves all purposes. That's like the best strategy. People in the beginning were asking me, well, should I do single family or should I do multifamily? And I would just say yes, right?
Uh-huh.
I like multifamily. It's not so vulnerable to market conditions and appreciation like that. And also, you have a little bit more control over it. You can force appreciation on your properties. Um, Maintenance doesn't kill you as much as it does on a single family. So there's a lot of good stuff from a multifamily perspective. But I like to always have, if that appreciation, when it does happen, I want a piece of that too. So I think you should have some single family homes as well. So I've got both of those. And now I'm getting to a point where, okay, I got enough property. I've got enough the passive income coming from that. We've got a turnkey operation where we have our flipping model. So we're getting some active income on a monthly basis from that as well. And what I've been doing lately is actually I did this about 18 months ago. I did a 80-20 analysis on all of my real estate, all of my properties. Like, what's the 80% that gives me the headache and the 20% that I want to keep? So all of these problem properties, when it comes to management, I started seller financing those, selling those with seller financing, and selling them to resident owners. So I was getting a good chunk of cash up front, and I maintained my cash flow, and in some respects, it increased my cash flow and decreased all of my headaches. So I've got a good balance of single families, multifamily, and notes that I keep all together. And I just have my CPA once a year do an analysis on it, like how do I need to buy more real estate to lessen or mitigate the tax implications on the notes, or do I have enough losses and enough on paper losses to where I can do more notes, because that's more cash flow and less headache.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my strategy. So uh, there's so many different ones. I mean, there's the mobile homes, there's the storage units, there's the lease options, and then the wholesaling of lease options, and the wholesaling of subject to lease options. Like everyone, there's just so much stuff out there that anyone can do. But I think the most important skill that anyone can acquire, regardless of what their exit strategy is going to be, is learn how to find the deal. There's a lot of people out there that'll show you how to do real estate. Most of those courses fall short on how to find deals, how to find people that need to sell. A lot of it is spent on people that.
Is that what your is that what your thing is? Like, if somebody wants to get into real estate, if I'm a newbie green guy, is that your recommendation? Like, how to get into real estate? Because Jake and I focus on multifamily, and we can talk you to death, and I'll convince you by the end of the podcast that multifamily is for you. I have a narrow mind, I've done it all, but what would your recommendation be for someone starting in the business? How should they start out?
You need to get good at finding deals. You need to find problems. You need to find property owners with problems and learn how to promote your solutions to those problems. Because nobody is going to give you their property if there's no problems. No one is going to sell to you at a discount unless they have to. So that's how you find discounted real estate. And if you're not good at that, you're just a buyer of real estate. You're not an investor. You're just buying, and hopefully it all works out. If you're an investor, you're buying low and you're selling high, whether that's immediately or if it's over long term, or by way of just selling the use of your property, like to a tenant.
Mm-hmm.
That's my strategy. That's when you bring the most value to any situation, and that's what attracts money to you. That's what attracts partners. It attracts investors. It just attracts everything to you if you're good at finding deals, because it's the hardest part of the business, to do that consistently and build up a lead machine that produces that day in and day out, like what we've created here. And so I get to call the shots. So I just, through our marketing streams and all of our marketing efforts, we never know what we're going to get. Like all the multifamily I own right now, I got through marketing to single families, where the owner says, well, I don't want to sell that one, but I got this one over here. Do you want that one?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I got all my multifamilies, was that way. So I just go ahead and do this marketing to single families, and it creates all types of opportunity. And if it passes, if I see equity in it and it passes that 1% rule, I put it under contract. And once I got under contract, now I can take my time, do my due diligence, and decide which exit strategy is going to be the best for me on that specific day.
I like that, Jake. It's the mom and pop strategy. Motivated seller. You need to find a motivated seller. That's what we do with the multis. Because if someone's not doesn't have a problem, they're not going to sell it to you. I mean, you need to have that motivation. I totally agree with that. How have you built your teams? This is a question that Jake likes to talk about. As far as your systems and your team building, it sounds like you really scaled up and ramped up really quickly, man. How is that? Any challenges growing there, and any tips on how to grow your systems out?
Yeah, you know, if I could do this all myself, I probably would have never lost a dime in real estate. And that's not to say I'm perfect by any means, but if you have good property management in place and you have a good contractor in place, it's really difficult to lose money in real estate. You know, I'm sure you guys have experienced it. You know, your biggest losses have probably come through other people by not doing what they said they were going to do, and that in those two compartments of property management and contractors. So we to find good ones, you got to go through some bad ones. You got to go and kiss some frogs to find the prince, I guess. And yeah, so we've done that, and building that team, it takes time, and you can never forget that this is a people business. And I mean, every piece of real estate you buy or sell is going to be from or to another person. You just can't get around that. I mean, the biggest and best, brightest minds in Silicon Valley from right at the dot-com boom have all been trying to eliminate people from this whole real estate transaction process. And today there's just as many realtors as there were back then. So you can't get rid of the people. So one thing that we've done is to build that business is when we find a good one, we take good care of them, but we don't stop looking. And our business model is built on, we have at least two teams in each market, and we make sure that they know about each other. So there's an inherent sense of competition. We don't pit them against each other. We treat them both well, but they both know about each other. And what we've found is performance rises and expenses decrease. And it also eliminates all single points of failure in our business. So, I mean, we had a property manager in Memphis that died on us that had 60 properties under management. And that's kind of where we learned this lesson the hard way. So that we're not at risk of that ever happening again and having it impact our business in any way. So that's how we've done it.
That's great. Can you give me, I guess, your best real estate investing tip or advice to the listeners?
Yeah, it comes in, I guess, two parts. You don't need to know everything before you take the first step, and find the deal and the money will find you. I find that those are the two things that stop people, and that they ultimately create fear. They're afraid of looking bad, so they want to know everything, so they're prepared for everything, but then never take action. Let that go. It's impossible to learn anything and look good at the same time, so just forget about it. Second is everyone thinks that they need money to invest in real estate, and that couldn't be further from the truth. You might need some money and a budget to run your business and for marketing and generating leads, but the actual real estate transactions, you don't need any money at all. You just need to find good deals.
Well, that's the whole rich dad mentality, right? Because my mom, she's an immigrant Italian. You need money to make money. I heard that growing up. Money doesn't grow on trees. You need money to make. I mean, if I had $1 for every time I heard that, I'm like, so I was conditioned to believe that also. And I think the majority of Americans are conditioned to believe that. So I totally agree with that.
It's easy to say, it's easy to remember, it's easy to recite, so it gets repeated frequently. It's too bad, though, because that's not true.
I agree.
Yep.
What about on a personal note? What is your best habit for success? Something that you do on a daily or weekly basis that's brought you to this point.
Let's see if I have a copy of it. We have something called the Daily Success Report, and what it is, it's just a list of the money-making activities that if you do the right things, you do them consistently, and you do them long enough, you will get the results that you want. And I don't have a copy. If your listeners want a copy, they can go to dailysuccessreport.com and get a free copy there. dailysuccessreport.com. It's just the activities that produce the results. And so that's, there's probably a clever Tony Robbins saying about habits, but it's really what it is. It's just create a daily habit of doing performing the activities that produce the money.
So give me on your daily success report, what kind of things do you have on there to give the listeners a good example?
Sure. So every day you got to do some form of promotion, right? You got to go out and seek the person or a crowd or an audience or a category of a person that potentially has a problem. you have to then promote a solution in front of that person. So for that part, we've automated that. So that's completely automated for us. That happens on a daily basis. Then you need to respond to those inquiries that come in. A lot of people are out there, they're lead collectors. I'm the evil lead collector, and they get all excited because their inbox is full of leads, their voicemail is full of leads, but then they don't call them. So you got to call them, right? And you got to set appointments, and you got to build rapport to set that appointment. And then a lot of people will do that, and they'll have this conversation with the seller of like, oh, well, I guess we don't have an agreement on price or terms, so I guess we're done. No, you've got to write a contract. You've got to put the offer in writing. The whole dynamic of the real estate transaction changes when it's in writing. I mean, how many yahoos are calling saying, hey, will you take $100,000 for this? Nope. Take $100,000 for this? Nope. But then you're the one who submits a written contract for $90,000, and all of a sudden now you're taken seriously. Well, I can't do $90,000. Can we come up to 95? Like all of a sudden it's real. So you've got to write contracts. So those are probably the three biggest things. Every day you got to generate leads. Every day you have to contact those leads. And every day you've got to present your price and terms to those leads. You've got to write offers. You don't have the right to think about or worry about anything else until you're doing those three activities on a daily basis.
So you mentioned, management and contractors getting in the way of the growth of the business. What has been your biggest mistake that you can give an example to the listeners so they can say, hey, I'm going to shorten my learning curve and not make that same mistake?
Same mistake. When you're interviewing property managers, first of all, go for referrals. Don't go through the white pages. That would be a Google search, I guess, in today's terms. I don't even know if people know what the yellow pages are anymore. But go for referrals. So go ask people that are executing your exit strategy successfully and ask them who do they use to manage their property, who are they using to fix their properties, and start there. Now, I'll tell you right now, that is not a foolproof system, so don't think you've got it licked just because you got a good referral. All right? Treat that person just the same as if it was a total stranger. And understand that everyone during that interview is on their best behavior. They're going to tell you exactly what you want to hear, and take it all with a grain of salt. And I think you should always go in with the idea that you're going to hire at least 2 people. You don't want to put all your eggs in that one basket. For example, when I had these 60 properties in Memphis under this one property manager that passed away, I just found another property manager and gave them all 60 properties. And they failed miserably. So that just compounded my whole issue. So now when we hire somebody out, we give them one small little task. We give them small jobs, and we kind of spoon feed them until they prove themselves. And, we've put property managers out of business. We've put contractors out of business because of the volume that we do. And, they want the business. They want to please. They might start off as people with really great intentions, but are completely unprepared for volume or any sort of scalability. And it turns good people, it puts bad situations on top of good people that forces them to just make bad decisions. And ultimately, it's you that pays the cost for those bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
That help?
Totally. You actually were when you were making that definition, it sounded like you were talking about my children. When you were defining, they're on their best behavior. They want to hear what you have to say. I was like, wow, I'm talking about my kids over there,
Right? Uh-huh. Best little negotiators ever, I'm sure.
Oh, dude, man, you have no idea, bro.
Dude, my daughter is so scary. She is so damn persistent and will not quit till she gets what she wants. And
but that's the problem, though. As adults, we lose that tenacity. We lose that,
I don't see it going anywhere, man. She's gonna be a pit bull, man.
Well, let's hope she is, because most of us, we become like, oh, you know what, negotiation. We just take what comes to us in life, and we don't really go after it like little kids do, man. Tony Robbins says, say no to a kid who wants ice cream. You'll see moves like you've never seen before, man. You got to see. So it's really important.
But that's that persistence, though, right there. When you get to the, oh, well, no, I'm not going to take 100 on the deal, right? Well, dude, we're just getting started. Right, that's that's just the starting point. We're talking right now. That's we're halfway there. So I thought that was a good point. What about a book recommendation? Maybe a real estate or business book.
I guess since we're on the subject, the book that I read once a year, I read it over and over again, and I read it because it's a different book every time I read it, and that's Awaken the Giant Within. I think it's a fantastic book, and if you actually implement and do the exercises that Tony Robbins outlines in that, it's just constant and never-ending improvement every time I read that book.
You and Gino are gonna have a bromance after this. A little
No,
Tony
dude,
Robbins
it's amazing.
session
You
here.
know why? It's so amazing. It's so enlightening what he said, because you're not the same person you were last year. You read stuff and you listen to stuff in the car. You should listen to it in the car, because you hear something every time and it doesn't make sense 2 years ago. But then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I never heard it, never thought of it that way. So that's really powerful that you listen to it every year. I listen to him a lot in the car, and it just hits me. Sometimes I'm in a better mood, so I can listen to the message better. Sometimes I'm going through something, and it seems like when you throw it in the car or you're reading it, you have to be there. You know, God puts it in front of you because it's something that you need right at that point in your life, and that's probably why you're reading it, and you get something out of it. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, if there was a really close second for a book that has had just as much of an impact on me as that book had. And so just imagine what your favorite book is. Anyone that's listening to my voice right now, what's your favorite book? Well, the perfect companion book with that would be The Slight Edge, and talking about how daily activities compounded over time is what produces real results. So, you know, if you're not interested in real estate and it's all about gardening, you need The Slight Edge. You know, if you're going to go to, well, you got it right there?
No, it's something I've been doing since, I don't know, I guess 2006 maybe, and it's essentially all the stuff you've been talking about. I did it as I used to sell pharmaceuticals and vaccines, and it was a way to plan my days out. But what it turned into was a daily accountability tracker. So I know I need to get this stuff done to get to the stuff at the top, right? I have goals at the top, and I fill it in with things every day that are gonna get me, you know, those things. So it's just something that, you know, I stumbled across, but it sounds like, you know, a lot of people are using. So
yeah, that book it's a small book. I have interviewed him on the podcast, and I just like, this is the perfect companion book for whatever it is that you aspire to. And
write that down.
It works with
what was the name
prejudice.
of it?
The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson.
Yeah.
And it's I'm sure it's very much the same principle your accountability report is built on. It's what our daily success report is built on. That if you just do the right activities, do them consistently, do it long enough, you're going to get everything that you want out of that.
Yeah.
It's the people that quit and don't do it consistently is that get inconsistent results.
What are you excited about right now? Any big projects you have in the hopper? Anything inspiring that you're doing that you want to share?
That's very good, Jake. That's a Tony Robbins question.
Dude, I'm not. You know, it's rub off from Gino then, because he's like the Tony. And tell me why that's a Tony Robbins question.
Well, it has you living into the future.
Yeah. Okay.
One thing is, if anything's going wrong in your life, stop focusing on what's happening and focus on what you want to have happen, and it changes everything. And when you ask a question like, "What are you excited about most right now?" it puts you in that state of what you want to have happen. So it's good. And I'm sure it's just a basic psychology question, but I heard it from Tony.
You guys are giving me way too much credit here. I'm just living in the moment, man.
You're not that smart. You're not that smart. Is that what you're saying, bro?
Pretty much.
What am I excited about most right now is that, you know, I've got a really good team. I've got a team of 4 virtual assistants all over the world that have been with me for years, and I love them. I've got 3 people here in the office that have found me. Either they were friends or friends of a friend, or they were podcast listeners. And so what we're doing right now is we have 2 other positions to fill inside, basically our marketing positions. And I'm going through this process of like actually going through resumes. We're hiring strangers. So I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I'm finding some amazing applicants, and I'm just like kind of forward thinking of what type of impact, once I decide on the right couple people, what an impact that's going to have on our business. You know, we've got everyone that works with us. We just kind of mesh together because we have good relationships and good character. The skills might not be where they need to be, but because the character is strong, everyone's willing to learn, and everyone focuses on the big picture and the end goal. I'm really excited about putting some super duper skills in place inside of our business. So that's what I'm excited about right now.
That's the evolution of a small business right there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Don't say small business, bro. That's not the word. Remember, words are important, so it's not a small business. It's an impactful business, bro.
That's the evolution of a business with fewer employees than a larger one. You guys are crazy. Hey, let's see. What's the best way for listeners to get a hold of you? You know, tell us a little bit about the podcast and the website.
Sure. I mean, if they're listening here in our voice right now, they can probably just find my podcast just as easy. It's the Epic Real Estate Investing Podcast. That's probably the easiest way for them to get over there as soon as they want to get over there. We talk about basically everything we talked about here today. So we talk about finding a deal, latest and greatest strategies. We interview cool people like yourself, and the actual website, which probably leaves a little bit to be desired, would be epicrealestate.com. But if you want to step into our world and start producing some results right away, I would go to dailysuccessreport.com, get that report, and start putting that to use in your business like ASAP. And that's probably have the biggest impact for you from this impactful business.
What about like Method Man or Wu-Tang or anything like that? We were talking hip hop before. I mean, you got the Yankees hat on. You know, you doing a little Jay-Z. Are you gonna break it down for us, or tell us a little bit about that?
No, I was a behind the scenes guy.
Oh,
I was a
okay.
music producer.
All right. Okay.
I hired talent to do all that for me.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's not going to happen.
Okay.
Boy, I sure missed the old
names you got like that cool little like filter over your mic. I was ready for your little freestyle, but all right.
Yeah, it feeds a certain need. Like I feel like I'm still in a recording studio, but I was never the voice talent.
Jimmy Iovine.
Right, there you go.
Hey man, this has been a lot of fun. Gino, you got anything else?
No, I just want to really thank him for taking the time out today, and a lot of golden nuggets. Go back and listen to this because there's a lot of golden nuggets. It's a lot about motivation. You want to hear Matt's voice? Jump on his podcast because you want to stay motivated daily. That's what you want. You want to hear positive voices. You want to hear that you don't need money. You want to hear that this is real. I was bagging groceries. I was making $1 million a year. Then I'm making $7 an hour. And you just need to stay motivated and need to hear that message every day because whatever you put in your mind is what you're going to act on. And how you feel at that certain point and how you're resonating with your energy level is how you're going to make decisions. So stay positive, stay focused. And you know what? Life's too short. I mean, I think we all want to be motivated. So either motivate yourself towards pleasure or motivate yourself away from pain. That's what I took away from this podcast more than anything else.
Super impactful story, and I hope you did something nice for that grocery store manager because that was an inflection point. That was a turning point, and it was a very authentic and inspiring story. So
thanks, Matt. I appreciate the time.
You bet, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Matt.
Take care.